everyone. My name is Labrador, and I will be happy to translate for you tonight. For our expert will be Gura Loto, and she says, I'm living in Damanhur since quite a while, since more than 20 years, 24 exactly, and I was always passionate about alchemy right after my arrival. Welcome. So I'm looking at your faces to connect you. Some of you I know, I also know some of you. So we ask you to choose the English channel down there if you want to listen in English. And per chi mi sente qui in inglese dovete scegliere italiano sotto alle possibilità dove si sceglie la lingua. C'è un globo. So what will we speak tonight? Tonight we will address a topic which I like very much because it's connected to the emotions, and these processes, alchemical processes, which transform and which can transform limiting emotions, negative emotions, into something fires which guide and which elevate these emotions in something useful. It's a topic which is quite wide and in alchemy, and we will not be able to touch every single point of it, but it's very fundamental of it. And it's connected to the alchemy of the living forces, the alchemy of internal forces which we contain. And the title we gave to this webinar, which you have read, obviously, so the invisible chains, or the lead which is holding us back, because states of negative consciousness which limit our expression are really chains. There are chains which usually we don't see and which hold us back from expressing our maximal potentials, our talents, the beauty which every one of us has inside. But more so, it's this getting close to it, is this finding of this knowledge. Everyone is hosting the soul, this principle of absolute intelligence, which every one of us possesses. So, I'm looking you, says Gura, because some of you I know, some I don't know yet. So I'm very happy to be with you here and to tell you that alchemy today in this epoch is dedicating itself to all these processes which transform the human being from a human being to a divine being. So all these processes, all these practices, all these rituals, which allow us to get closer to find out our inner divinity. So, as we call it in Damanhur. But of course, it's consciousness every single one of us is hosting. And the states of consciousness and the negative emotions which limit us is something which is anchoring us a lot to the material plane, but not only, but to this material emotion, but also to the mechanicity of our mind. And tonight, or in this lesson, wherever you listen to, I would like to share with you not only concepts but also useful practices to start to transform negative emotions in useful emotions, useful to our pathway, to our evolutionary transformative process, and how to free ourselves to create our wings to see a vision or have a vision from above of ourselves, more aware of that, and not only, but everything which is around us. So imagine your emotions as a fire. In alchemy, fire is an element which transforms, which is elevating, and which is transmuting something into something else, refining it. Imagine emotion as an internal fire, as a force which we possess. And if we manage to transform it from lead, so from heavy emotions, which we can correspond as a metal to lead, to an emotion which is elevated, refined, pure, which could be corresponding to gold, we are able to start this chemical process. So let's make a first distinction what's fundamental between emotion and emotivity. So the emotion, we speak about emotions in general. Emotion is an energy which is refined, it's a force, it's a state of consciousness which is refined, which when we perceive it, it should produce in our body, in our energy, in our mind, a harmony. I'm sorry. And imagine it as a color, as pastel colors. Colors which create profoundness, different shades. Instead, if we talk about emotiveness, emotionality, it's something chaotic. It's a kind of emotion which is not controlled. It's a reaction. It's something which is pushing us to lose our balance. And we can compare it to more violent colors, more brighter colors, more contrasting colors, like brushstrokes, which are also a bit darkening our general vision. When emotion is a chemical instrument, if it's well guided, so only if it's guided, it allows a transformation of the knowledge, but the emotion which brings us to a reaction, to a state where we're not under control or we don't control it, it becomes an obstacle. And while I'm speaking about it, think of it, how many times did you manage to guide an emotional state of you, to benefit from it, to create through an emotion a sensation which is harmonious well-being in yourself and in the others around you. And then imagine moments when, or how often also, in your lives, in our lives, you don't manage to do that. And when this emotion becomes an emotionality, a reaction creating this harmony, reactiveness, it's quite common in humans, in the general medium humans, to not be able to guide all our emotions. And it's a topic which for me is very important, says Gura, because I started a long time ago and I'm still working on it. And it is a topic of alchemy which Falco, the inspirator of Damanhur, who had brought us the alchemical knowledge, which we're talking about, he considered it as is one of the topics which is most difficult, where the application is more difficult, because all the alchemy regarding emotions and consciousness is the most difficult one, because it's asking for certain characteristics, let's say, apparently simple, banal, but they're not that, like being present and processes of self-observation to become more aware about our emotional states, and a continuous awareness, attention, because these characteristics should be expressed if, with the will, when we want to transform them, they should be expressed in every single moment of the day. And that's not easy, applicable, but possible. So, emotions, it's states of being, and they're very subjective, as everyone is unique of us and unreproducible. We go through emotions. We have emotions which are produced from your own subjective perception of the experiences and of people and of yourself. So it's not an objectiveness, but it's always a subjective perception. And these forces, these internal forces, which are the emotions, are interacting when we have a certain state of mind, and it's interacting not only with our body, but it's interacting also with our energetical structure, and it's interacting also with our mind. So it's they are active forces inside of us which influence and modify the the substances our body is producing. The substances which are produced by our body are incredibly important, because they are them guiding us and guiding our actions. So the capacity to acquire, to guide, to transform our emotions depends very much on the awareness which every single one has. So the awareness we acquire of our emotions, what we go through. If you think of how emotion is born, emotion is apparently inside of us, and it's born independent from our will, apparently. But not thinking that it comes out of our will, because in a common thought, the humans don't believe to distill intentionally its own emotions or to create intentional emotions. But the believing is that they are born due to external events, so experiences we go through, and then subsequently produce states of mind inside of us. And here I want to distill this thought, because in alchemy, and which could be paradoxical, but alchemically, emotions are born from inside. So they're not depending of what we live on the outside, and they can be created intentionally. This is implying the use of specific practices and processes which are guiding us to a refinement, internal, of course, interior refinement. So therefore, technically, in our body, which is our temples, it's our chemical laboratory. It can produce millions of substances, and it's producing it anyway, independent from us. It's one of its function, right? And these substances, these produced substances, they are activated by emotions, by thoughts, states of mind, which we go through, which send an information to the body, which produce then consequently the substances. So thoughts, expansive thoughts, positive thoughts, creative thoughts produce corresponding substances in our body. On the contrary, the substances which are produced are substances not beneficial if we think so, in a different way. So our way of thinking, of feeling, of perceiving our thoughts, thanks to our emotions, so they act on a physical level, on the body fluids, to the secretions of our body, which contain these states of consciousness, the hormones, especially all these biochemical changes within our body through the fluids and secretions contain exactly emotions, as they're influencing our energetical bodies, our energetical structure. So not only the subtle bodies, which are commonly called the aura, but also influencing on our energetical centers, on the flows of our body, and also on the psychical level. They're operating at these three levels, which are the three fundamental parts of ourselves. When the emotions we feel are repetitive, and they repeat over and over, and they become similar one to the other, they create connections, neuronal connections, which are crystallized over time, which crystallize over time. So we are often guided by our emotions, and it's not us guiding them. Are you with me on that? Do you confirm that? Good. So imagine them as inner fires. These fires, so the emotions, to be able to anchor, to produce transformation, they have chemical substances at their support and have energetical parts and neuronal connections, so the psychic parts. Imagine, good as no. Let's say, no, I now decided to speak about myself, says Gura. I imagine often, she says, how I was for a lot of time and how I perceive myself now. For a long time, and I manifested that as a consequence. I was quite reactive and negative. And when I think about the process I did to transform these parts, which like lowered my energetical level and also my frequency over time, applying chemical processes, I managed to transform negativity and also rage and reactiveness in a flow which brought me to a extreme determination. So not to an emotion which stayed feeling maybe, but giving it a movement which brought me to a certain determination. And then I arrived at a point, this determination, which then brought me to refine more and more reactivity and rage into something which then became, not always, of course, but for the major part of time, a total different emotion, she says, which is guiding me today, which is over the majority of time, it's joy and inner clearness. I know her and I can confirm that. But to not shock you, I won't tell you how many years I spent on that to arrive there. But I would like to tell you, it's processes of this kind are, you can realize them if you are determined. In all that, it's the way of perceiving reality is very important when I was dominated by negative thoughts. So the reality I lived and which I read around me and which I saw in the others, in my experiences, which I made, was all filtered by these states of consciousness. So everything outside of me seemed negative, me seemed destructive, and my energetical container was totally empty. I I was like when you straining when you strain the pasta with all these holes. So and negative emotions drain energy. They suck it away. If you think of it, when you have them, it's like that. On contrary, creative emotions and expansive emotions, positive ones, are producing something, producing energy, and they are filling up your containers. But she says, how can you transform them? How can you transform these emotions, these states of consciousness? Do you have any idea practically how you do that? No illumination here, no consideration.
I have an
Go,
idea.
Sandra. You are not valid because you did the alchemy school.
Okay.
No, no, she's joking. Say it, say it, say it. Say your thought. Share your thought.
Yeah, but this is new, storing emotions. But I think it's about visualization and you do some, you make a potion and then you do some fluid from your tears or your from your mouth in it. Yeah, like that, and then maybe do a ritual. Huh? Like the four elements ritual that you do this every month, and then I think then your emotions becoming more profound. Or I think this, I don't know. But I would love to try it.
So you cited practices of pure alchemy, but I would like to give you tonight more simple elements and applicable in every single moment. After all, to transform a negative emotion, which is limiting, it's very useful. The conscious observation of this emotion. So, therefore, you yourself, and that's an exercise which we do in alchemy, we self-observe ourselves to acquire a higher awareness of the emotions and the states of consciousness we are going through. In this, to become more aware of it means also to approach to the emotion without depressing it and without nourishing it. These are two magical words. So the observation of the emotion is coming from a neutral point. It's a mere, you acquire consciousness of awareness of what you are going through. You don't judge. You're not trying to describe it or to bring it to somewhere or to explain it why and how. You observe it from outside. So taking a certain distance, and you're not depriving it. So you let it express itself inside of you. Uh, and you don't nourish it, you feed it in any way. That's an exercise which is very, very useful, very simple, simple to say so, because when you are in the middle of an emotion, in this state of consciousness, you will forget the majority of times to observe it. You will be guided by this, not even guided, you took over by this emotion. But if you remember to do that, you simply can, with this act of observing, you can transform it. Other techniques, useful techniques, which are banally connected to the breathing. So the breathing is a super potential practice, and a lot of traditions apply it. And actually, it should become something daily practical, not only for your psychophysical, energetical well being, but really to work on the field of emotions and the state of consciousness. So, techniques of breathing and also physical movement, conscious movement, this can help a lot, a lot. Gura says the transformation of an negative emotion into something else, as the use of sound. In alchemy, we use techniques which are more specialized, which I will not open all these chapters now here, but these are elements, and bring attention to when you're living something, what you're living, and don't be judges of yourself. So don't express judgment on you, on what you're living, what you're feeling, but observe. Observe from distance without depressing and without feeding it. As you can also do trials of how it can change the fact, not only doing daily practices which are based on breathing, the conscious breathing exercises, whatever exercise you do, but try while you're interacting with the world, with people, with situations, before you have a reaction, which is evoked by a not guided emotion, so a reaction. Before you to do it, take a deep breath, and you will see how the reaction, the emotional response will transform into something conscious. So the alchemists, or those who becomes the ones guiding emotion. It's not finding myself in a situation where it takes up emotions, but it's in an active position where the alchemist is able to transform them. And transforming that is not only useful substances, but also a mental clearness, energetical power, which is different, and a spiritual transformation. If you have any considerations, questions, please ask me. And yeah, there is this function of raising your hand. That's so. Besides the emotions, there is an even more advanced level, which is called alchemy of state of consciousness. It's a wider field of states of mind which are connected to the consciousness, and that turns into the alchemical laboratory. So the focus point where all the different experiences, these interior states, the emotions, not only are observed, but are also mixed, which intentionally chosen, put together to produce something different. The alchemy of the state of consciousness is very, very complex, and it asks a lot of discipline and a presence which is constant, because it's implying the exploration of your own mental states, not only which cause emotions, but observe every internal state of yourself, learning step by step to be aware of them and to distinguish them, so to understand the effects which they produce on us. The next phase is then recalling states of consciousness of willingly, so intentionally, and then develop this capacity to evoke from inside states of consciousness, specific ones, and then to start to, how to say, to create new forces, new state of consciousness, and to mix them intentionally, and then to see further on what they're producing. The alchemy of states of consciousness allow to create a bridge between physical dimension and dimensions, spiritual dimensions, dimensions of consciousness. So that these states become a transformative fire and not a burning fire, and not something which is destructive. They have to be guided, refined, and catalyzed by the consciousness. Write it in capital letters. The magical word is awareness. So the goal of an alchemist is not only to deprive emotions or states of consciousness. It's not the one to feed certain states of consciousness or emotions, but to transform them and use them as evolutionary instruments. The conscious guiding of an emotion is asking for a condition which goes out from mechanicity, so the mechanicity of our mind, and from the reactiveness. This means to become present, to have a conscious presence to yourself of what you're living inside and how it's manifesting in the outside. So to acquire a guiding of yourself, which is asking force. It's energetical charges. It's real charges, powerful, which can accelerate or block our emotion. And this not can only be a mental work. This is implying a major capacity to feel, to perceive inside of you, to understand, to observe. It's a constant change also towards yourself, which means to loosen rigid structures, to break up limiting thoughts, which are making you rigid, and then choosing others which make the opposite effect. The human being is living in, or the majority of us is chained inside negative emotion, belief systems, which are limiting conditionings we went through in our life, in our society, the education we got by our parents, our upbringing. And it's that ones which make us to live a mechanical reality where we don't leave space to the conscious action. So going over this state and to reawaken ourselves on a higher level, on the next level, means to bring awareness to our emotions and our thoughts. This is the first stadium of the alchemy, transforming alchemy, which we call the nigredo, which means to see your own heavy parts, which are blocking us, which close us, which limit us, and operate thanks to the systems which I told you. And it's not only them, it's the first practical exercises which we apply, but to start to enter in this field which everyone goes through of illusions, to complete identification with our emotions, with what we think who we are, which keeps us imprisoned. So the black phase, this negredo phase, is this phase where we start to perceive ourselves not only as an I in the meaning egocentric ego, but as a multiplicity. We are made of so many different parts, and we are made of many different parts. We're not one single entity inside of us. We have a series of emotions, states of consciousness, which are constantly in contrast. You know that. I mean, everyone goes through that, where we have parts which go in an evolutionary direction, and others they are holding back, others which are pushing, huh? Others they don't want to know anything about that. So all these parts, don't let the uh, consciousness come out, because it's this part we're identifying completely, not thinking that once one part of us is manifesting, it's only a part of ourselves. It's not our totality. So we think ourselves as a unique being. So when we live one specific emotions, we are so inside of it, of these emotions, of this state of consciousness, that we think that it's us, that this emotion, it's us, it's me. But it's not like that, says Gura. This emotion represents only a little part of myself. And that brings often to be disorientated, because why? If we continue to identify ourselves with every thought, with every condition we have, which brings us to constantly being guided from different directions, from the different flows or currents. And also, this process is a part of the transforming process or transformational process, which we have to go through thanks to through the observation. So to be totally aware of what's happening inside of us. So observing without identifying yourself, without becoming slave of what you're thinking, but taking it and considering is a part of yourself, and putting together all the other parts and the different directions, and to go to go more in profoundness. This is implying that Gura says, how shall we say that, to change perspective of ourselves, to see ourselves not only as a single eye, but like a lot of eyes. So one of these could have thoughts, direction, different emotions, and sometimes, few times, they're integrating. Very often, they are contrasting these different eyes inside yourself. So the emotions, the negative emotions, this emotion which are limiting us, bring us in a state, in a dark state of good as looking for the words like for shadow, which is hiding this consciousness which we can express when we accept these inner states totally, without resisting and without avoiding them. We have to embrace them, collect them without judging. It's a characteristic of to welcome them. It's a characteristic we have to express towards ourselves, but also towards the others. And this passage all is first to ourselves, because if we're not able to apply it towards us, we will not be able to apply it to what is outside of us. The nigredo state brings you in a state of chaos because the paradigms are changed of what we think what we are. So it's the first paradigm which is changing is the fact to consider yourself not a single one, but a multiplicity of these different eyes, a group. Yes, we can say it's like a group of people we have inside of us, or persons with different directions, expressions, and experiences, which have or who have to know them each other and to harmonize and integrate them to then be able together to take a direction, a defined, unique, single direction, which is not that simple, she says. So to enter in this first phase of Nigredo, which is this chaos phase, this where the shadow is, where we put into discussion there's what we think, what we go through. So where we're not identifying anymore with the thoughts and emotions, but where we take a distance and we are become more aware of it, and this ask for a non-judging state inside of you. So no judgment and non-identification. So of practices of detachment of ourselves, a practices of the being aware of yourselves. Tell me a bit, what do you think of that? Don't be shy. So you don't think anything? No, this cannot be possible. Who has the courage to? So I hear a voice, Sara and Luciano per te. I wanted to say that you can do all that in practice of this Buddhist, or what you said, simply to sit yourself down and you dedicated time to it, to let yourself inspire you, to observe your thoughts. So there are a lot of practices on that, but you can do that in these moments when you have this time, when this space you dedicate to yourself and to practice that. But when you are in moments of the reactions, when you're in a situation, the reaction is instinctive. So as you said, it's programmed already inside of you. So this is then more difficult because you don't have the space and time to, so you have to find the fast techniques for this moment. For example, I practices for a lot of years, and it's not that I arrived yet. She says, you change in this moment, you change something, you do something fast, you look in the mirror, wash your hands, whatever it is, to exit from this moment of reaction, because the reaction is instant. It's not something you can think to, to elaborate and blah, blah, blah. No, it's in the moment of the practice. You do, no, that's good. It's a question, because when the programmation is already physiological, society, in your neurons, it's instinctive, because there you're already in this, what all the psychologists call fight and flight, and then freeze. When you're there, you're not choosing, you don't choose consciously. Yes, it's true what you're saying, Siskura, but the challenge is to manage to do that. And it's a process, and it's not something immediate. To do that in your daily life. You don't need to take this specific time to do that. In every single situation where you find yourselves, at the beginning, if you try to do that, and you find yourself in a situation where you're speaking, you're communicating with a person which is producing inside of you rage or anger or something like that, because this person has a aggressive behavior, and our programmation would be, it's like rage is responding to rage and anger to anger, so I respond in the same way. But if you start, and that's the first part, it's to remember to do it. If you say, okay, only in a situation today, a certain situation is presented to me where a person is attacking me, and I don't want to react, and I don't want to respond in the same way. So I have to pay attention to myself in the moment when it will happen to me. And when you're then in this situation, you have to find this a strategy to not react. For example, the strategy could be, I don't respond. I take time. This needs that you observe yourself, so your attention is not on the other person, but the observation is on yourself. And in this moment, when you're aware that these emotions is burning inside of you, thanks to this exchange with this person, it's like a fire which is like burning inside of you, and which would bring you to react immediately, acting it out. But when you, at the beginning, it takes some time to recognize that. So in this time, you decide not to respond, for example, for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever. The other person will think you're crazy. It's not, you're not answering, and you're in front of this person not forming words. You don't have to worry. You take your time to do your process, to become aware of what this emotion is producing in you. And then if you manage to respond in a harmonious way to this other person, you do it. And if not, you can very serenely describe the process you're going through to this person, and you always have to speak about yourself, never about the other. And you start to say, listen, your words are producing a lot of rage, anger in me, and if I would cease to the instinct in myself, I would respond very aggressively, but I don't want to do that. So that's why I take a time to reflect and what you're telling me, and then maybe I'm responding to you in a while, well, 1 hour, some days, whatever. That's a strategy to learn, and then it can be immediate. So the strategy could be that I stop as if it would be something external. You become a testimony. Anima wrote that. you have to be the testimony who is observing what's happening. It's not immediate, and it's taking a lot of force, awareness, and it takes a lot of presence to yourself. And meanwhile, if you manage to do that with a certain continuity, you will recognize that this observer, this external observer, which activate naturally. There's time needed, and it will guide you. It's not anymore you. It's like this external consciousness which will guide you in your actions, in your choosing state of mind. It's super difficult, says Gura. But the challenge is this one, to find systems which allow you to apply that in every single moment of your daily lives, which really allow you to make in a way that your daily life, in all the experiences, become points of transformation. It's not necessary to have an hour of time, half an hour of time every single day to, no. Yes, to do your breathing, to do your personal practices. Yes, that's very useful and should be the base. But it's not then doing that everything in your day is transforming. It's not like that. That would be wonderful if it would work like that. It would be, but it's too simple. It's too simple. In fact, the big masters of these times, from Tolle or other Dispenser and so on, how many are speaking about presence? And also Falco in Alchemy always told us that the problem, like the biggest problem which we have to face in alchemy in the process of inner transformation, is the lack of presence to ourselves. The lack of presence to ourselves. Another obstacle in this specific field of negative emotions is represented. We often don't accept, or maybe we don't even want to see our shadows, our darker sides, our limiting sides. We don't want to look at them, and we don't want to accept them. But they are part of us. If we contain them, it means that they are there because they're there for a reason, because the universe is not giving away anything. And if we contain that, and we contain also our limiting parts, because they can be transformed into something different. Nothing is superficial. Everything can be used. Everything. Because the universe saves. And everything can be used in the direction towards the reawakening. Or awakening, to say. And manifestation of the more profound parts connected to our consciousness. The fire is an element which has both characteristics. The fire can be destructive or very creative. When it's not controlled, it's destruction. When it's guided, it's creativity transformed. And feeling fully an emotion which is creative and destructive without being torn, becoming testimony, and looking at it from the outside means transforming it. This creates also an inner balance. It creates a balance because, as I said before, our state of consciousness have an impact on us physically, mentally, and energetically. If we start to guide them, or as we do in alchemy, to produce them intentionally, we start to create a new balance between these parts. A new balance, which is harmonious or more harmonious, always more harmonious, between the physical and energetical part and physical part, psychical part, sorry. Physical, energetical, psychical. So this work happens as if we would be inside of an orchestra where all these parts are sync in one to the other to produce an harmonious sound. So all these parts which work on a new balance, they are creating and they're reawakening, they're awakening the consciousness. So, to synthesize a bit, the practical instruments which are cited: observation and presence. Observing states of consciousness, your emotions, without identifying with them. To feel what they're producing energetically inside of you without nourishing them and without depriving them. And using your breath or whatever technique of breathing and creating a balance, a different balance, using these techniques among these three parts, a symphony, a new harmonization, a new order, to say so, functional, and the functioning of an equilibrium between these three parts: physical, energetical, and psychical parts. What I was thinking. So to knowing your own limiting parts is essential. Knowing your negative thoughts, to allow this energy, this creative energy, to bloom, to come out. Yeah, just to immerse. And in this way, the alchemist becomes is like the patron of the inner fire, and isn't able, thanks to different techniques, to transform all that from lead to gold. So to transform your own shadows in freedom, in awareness, in consciousness, emotion, or the emotions, is something in movement. It's something which is born inside and it's moving, and very often it's bringing us to make choices, to act or to react. One of the principal techniques we are using in alchemy, it's what Sandra said before, is to recognizing how the emotions, the states of consciousness, impact in these three parts of our being. And what do? We create intentionally inside of us a specific emotion, then to transfer the frequency, the information it has into water and use this water as a potion, as a elixir, a beneficial elixir to transform the moments when we have the need of it, to transform negative emotions, or to produce inside of us specific states of consciousness. So the alchemist, with this precise technique, creates himself. He creates like a library. It's not right the correct term, but like a little pharmacy, like a self-produced products, huh? Which are containing emotions where you feel the need of having them. For example, so how much joy I drank, I only can know, because to get out of this negativity which I was in for so many years, I had to produce a lot of that, and to manage to produce these substances within your body and with chemical techniques bring them out and deposit them in water. And then when I had the necessity to give back this information to my body, it's shortening the processes. It's like if you would have, in this precise case, you're bypassing this conscious forcing, and if we would give immediately the information to the body, to thanks to the intelligence of the body, so that it changes our energy and our practical part. So regarding to the exercise which I spoke about before, this precise technique is very much immediate, because it's easier. You don't. Falco, who was a big chemical strategic, and he found technique and rituals which are shortening down the process, as the universe is not giving away anything, it's saving. So alchemy found systems which are very immediate, very efficient, and which are shortening and cutting down the process. It's not said that that your awareness and consciousness goes to them parallel ahead, because alchemical processes, or the rituals we're using, and which are like these shortcuts, it's not said that doing the shortcuts that also the other part is developing in the same speed. So Guna says, over time I integrated the Damanhur and alchemy with other processes of alchemy which are considered more traditional ones, like, for example, the self-observation, to detach from yourself, the presence, as etc. Now, Guna says, anyone who has a question, consideration, curiosity, for those who haven't spoken yet? None. Okay, then we will make a little experiment. So let's have a little experience. Let's go on. A little exercise. Animal is you spoke about mixing state, the consciousness. How is it happening? Do you have an example? Can you inform water, for example, with joy? how to mix the states of consciousness. In alchemy, as first state, initially, what do? We inform the water with the states of our consciousness. And we know that water is able to structure on a molecular level to preserve information. So how do we do that? How we mix them? This work is happening before outside of you. Well, first inside of you, because you have to produce it intentionally. And we do a sort of meditation, like self-hypnotic a bit. Where we anchor ourselves with a precise state of consciousness. For example, I want to recall inside of me the mental lucidity, which I had in a specific moment of time. So I will go there and to fish in my memory and an experience where I had this mental lucidity, and I will connect to it, to a color, a smell, a situation, so which I went through. And then when I hooked it on thanks to a memory, so we used the memory of this experience, then I expanded in my body for a for a specific, very precise time. It's a couple of minutes. In these minutes, in this precise time, my body will produce the substances which are corresponding to that. So it will be more easy for my body to perceive this emotion, because the hormones produced these substances which are produced this state of consciousness of this awareness, this lucidity. And then I will be ready, very simply. There are a lot of different techniques in alchemy, but I will then have water contained in a in a in a bowl, where thanks to the breathing I will transfer energetically on a frequency level this precise emotion. So blowing it in, because also to blow in magic, in alchemy, is considered a vital thing. So it's transporter of life. And thanks to blowing water inside of it, every little bottle is then containing a different state of mind and consciousness. So I will have my lucidity contained in one of a bottle, and then you put it into a bottle to keep it. And then I will find it useful to mix my lucidity together with another state of consciousness of joy, because according to me, joy and my lucidity, they're more efficient than when I put them together. So they becomes more, efficient, she says, more pleasurable. So then I will also produce joy. And then there are chemical techniques which we mix them together, or also physically, and also with systems which transmit frequencies. And then I will create a third potion, which is something more, which is then unifying these two parts, like the lucidity and the joy, and then creating this third state of consciousness, which putting together the first ones, and which is not only the union of these two states of consciousness, but then becomes something even different. Then I will experiment very simply one of the techniques, there are a lot of different techniques, and one of them is drinking them, and then seeing how my body, my energy is responding to that. That's practically one of the practices which we use in our alchemy. But now I would like to propose to you to do this little experience to transform an emotion, a limiting emotion. So I ask you to find a comfortable position wherever you are, whether you're seated on a chair, on the sofa, on the cushion. Just find a comfortable position. And it would be great if your spine is in an upright position. Your hands relaxed on your thighs or on your knees, not crossed over, and also your legs not crossed over. And now, with your closed eyes, you bring your attention to your breathing. Inhale profoundly. Hold for a moment. And then exhale slowly. Let that the breath is fluid, natural, and follow your rhythm. And imagine as a wave. Inhale profoundly and feel how the air is entering in your lungs. And then exhale slowly, feeling how the air goes out. And every time this wave of breath is entering and exiting from you, it is creating a bridge between your interior world and the external one. And continue to breathe with your rhythm. It's a fluid wave of air entering and exiting. And now bring your awareness inside of you. Imagine to take up an inner journey, an exploration in your body, in your mind, in your energy. And let that inside of you an emotion emerges. An emotion which you feel is limiting you. Let it come up. That it naturally shows itself. It's an emotion which in this moment of your life is blocking you, it's limiting you, or is producing a state of consciousness which are negative. Whatever emotion it is, let it come up inside of you. And think of an event where you felt it really, and observe it. Take an external position to yourself and start to observe it without judging it. Allow yourself to feel it and to give it space. And now, ask yourself this question. Where do I feel it in my body? Observing it from outside. Try to perceive, to feel where it's developing and recognize simply that the place where it's developing, where it comes up, is this point in the body. And don't judge yourself, just observe in which point this emotion, this limiting emotion, is developing. And if you would have to give it a color, which color would you give to this emotion? What would be the color of this emotion? Observe it, the color it has. And if it would have a form, which form would it have, this emotion? Again, observe it, the form it's taking up, this emotion, with curiosity, with openness, without expressing any judgment. Just observe it. Don't label it, just take it in, just collect it. And be aware of the point in the body where you feel it. And now imagine that this emotion changes form and color. And always from the outside, you observe it. And if before the emotion was dark, now start to brighten it up. So make it that it's turns into a clearer color, brighter. Imagine to make this process so the color is getting lighter, brighter, always observing the point where you felt it and where you felt it, being blocked. And imagine again this point and observing it always from the outside, that this point comes up from this point in the body, this emotion starts to is coming up. If you felt it heavy, turn it into something light. And now I will ask you to take a deep breath. And while you inhale, you imagine to have light and comprehension, clearness to this emotion. And when you exhale, you let go all the resistance, all the tension. Inhale, filling these emotions up with calmness, with acceptance. And when you exhale, let that it transforms itself. And again, inhale and accept that it's there. And exhale, transforming it. And continue to breathe till you don't feel that this emotion has a different balance within you. And now this external observer, which observed this process, which became more aware of it, now turns into a golden light, which from the outside enters in your heart and starts to expand. And this light is your awareness, which transformed this whole process and now is entering in your heart and is turning into your center, your presence, and which guides you in your growth, in the evolution. Expand this golden light from your heart to your whole body and start to feel the energy, the brightness of it. And when you're ready, take a couple of deep breaths. And then when you will reopen your eyes, you're more aware, you're more free, renovated with the emotions. The emotions not possessing you anymore, but it's you guiding it. Take your time. You're all here now, enriched, renovated, more aware. If you have questions, then invite you to put your questions now. Or if you have considerations, very welcome on this experience if you would like to share about this. And also the silence is speaking. So at this point, I thank you very much. I thank you very much that you took your time to be with us tonight. In Italy, it's nighttime. I invite you to do the exercises, and I'm happy that you listen to us, and I wish to you that you become more aware. I greet you, and I remind you that we have this webinars monthly, so it won't be not only me, but also my other alchemist friends, and every time we will speak about a different topic and about practical things. So thank you very much for everyone, and have a good awareness life. Thank you very much. Convoy. Also from my side, have a wonderful evening and looking forward to seeing you maybe on another occasion soon. Convoy.